Good morning, children. Welcome to our RE session. Now we're following up on what I hope you saw last week, which was a video clip showing two of the wonderful stories from Islam, from the Quran. One was the Prophet and the ants, but the one that we're thinking about today is called the crying camel. Now, what I want you to have a think about is, what's the message? What is the message, do you think, behind this story? And we're going to talk about that a little bit after I retell the story. And I'm going to give you a task to do, and it's a task that you might find is quite fun. Okay, so I'm going to start off by telling the story again of the crying camel. It was a very hot day, and the people who lived in the city of Medina were trying to find somewhere to keep cool. There were many beautiful gardens in the city with tall, shady trees. People came to the gardens to sit under the branches of the trees before mosque. They sipped refreshing drinks while they talked, told stories and laughed. Now the Prophet Muhammad was walking in one of the gardens. He loved to walk in the shade under the trees where it was green and cool in comparison to the baking heat of the sun. He liked to think quietly as he walked, often smiling at the people he knew. While he was walking, Prophet Muhammad heard a strange noise. It sounded like someone crying or someone howling. It sounded like someone who was really upset. As he came closer to the source of the noise, the Prophet could see it was not a sad person at all. It was a camel. Muhammad felt really sorry for the camel. It was tied to a post out in the sunshine. It was very hot and it looked very thirsty. Tears were running down the camel's cheeks. Its fur was wet. No one seemed to even notice its howls. Muhammad stroked the camel, and after it became calmer. And after a while, the howls became grunts, and the grunts became a sort of noise of pleasure. The tears stopped running down the camel's cheeks, since he knew that Muhammad was his friend. And then Muhammad became angry. He strode along the pathways, calling, "Who owns this camel?" At last a voice said, "I do." And a man stepped out from under the shade of the biggest tree in the garden. And Muhammad looked at the man. He was not hot, he was not thirsty, and he most certainly was not thinking about his camel. Muhammad spoke quietly to him. Consequently, he realised what he'd done. The camel's owner's head began to droop, and Muhammad reminded him that the camel was one of God's creatures. The animal would work hard for the man. It would carry him heavy loads and take him to places far away. And in return, the man should take good care of his animal. The camel owner felt really bad. He'd been cool, comfortable and happy, while his camel was hot, bothered and upset. And his behaviour had even upset the Prophet Muhammad. He was so ashamed. However, from that day on, he looked after his camels so well and always made sure they had enough to eat and drink, and that camel never had to cry again. So, what do you think? Just take a moment now, pause the video after I ask this question, and just tell me the answer, even though I won't be able to hear you straight away. But what do you think that story is trying to tell us? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, so I don't know what you came up with, and I'd be really grateful if you'd email us and let us know. But I think that story is telling us that God cares for all of his creatures, whether they're animals or humans. And even if we're not a believer, it's telling us that we need to take care of things that are less fortunate than ourselves. Animals can't tell us about their needs. We have to try and think about what animals need. And we all want to be kind to animals. We don't want them to suffer. Now, here we come to our task, our RE task for this week, and it's quite a fun one. I want you to think about how you can care for animals right now, because it's not really, really hot like Medina. It's the opposite. It's really cold at the moment. There's snow on the ground. What do you think you could do to help the wild animals that live in the city, like the squirrels and the birds that we have that come into our gardens? What can you do this week while it's snowy to help them? I want you to write it down on a piece of paper, not a worksheet, just any paper you have. And I want you to email us at the year 2 at anglesey.beham.sh.uk and I want you to tell us what you can do to help animals this week. Bye, children.